Your Minnesota Vikings are 9-2 on the season, and they've had a lot of fun. You know, of course, Kirko chains, you got the Jefferson catch, and all that stuff, right? But it does seem like it's a little bit of a magic carpet ride. 7 straight wins, 1 score or less. Same thing with the Patriots game on last Thursday. So, I mean, we make no bounds about it. Like, occasionally we like to wager a jelly bean or two on the Vikings, and I will say that the Vikings have been a little bit frustrating this year, but we'll get into that. Now, you may be asking yourself, like, why the Vikings aren't getting the respect from the betting markets. Well, Todd Fuhrman, a betting expert over at CBS Sports, is formerly at Fox, respect his opinions a lot, but he brought the hammer down on the Vikings, man. So this is the way he said. If you're wondering why the Vikings get no respect, like Rodney Dangerfield, no respect in the betting market, this is why. Their plus 5 point differential to date this season is the worst by a 9-win team in NFL history. So yeah, I mean, the Vikings, it's been brought up about point differential. Now, this feels like just a brick that other sports media is just trying to hit the Vikings with, because when have you heard about point differential before? Like, this is not the World Cup. Like, a win is a win is a win. See, I was unaware that Dallas beating the Vikings by 37, allegedly, or Philly beating the Vikings by 17, versus the Vikings winning by a field goal against the Bills. I was unaware that Cowboys game counted extra in the win column versus the Vikings versus the Bills. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird how that looks, right? But so you may be thinking, all right, so the Vikings are 9-2. How come they're not larger favorites in some of these games? Well, he continued on this whole point differential thing. So someone chimed in, take out one game, the Dallas game, and it's plus 42. So all of a sudden the Vikings go 6 to midnight in that spot. And then Todd replied, can play devil's avocado there. They're also 8-0 in one-score games, which is the best record all time as well. So their margin of error thus far is razor thin. So there are outliers that cancel each other out in this equation. Where, I mean, that sounds smart. Where, all right, so the Vikings have run extremely well and gotten it done and played good football in the fourth quarter, and it is nice to win 8 one-score games and lose none of them. But I don't necessarily see how that 1-for-1 cancels out the Cowboys game, or why it would. It's like, oh, well, if you throw out the Cowboys game, the Vikings have a significantly better point differential than the point you made earlier. It was like, well, what about the tight games that they find a way to win at the end? Where winning one close game can be lucky. Winning 8 and losing none, that ain't luck. That ain't luck, bro. So I don't really subscribe to that reasoning. And if you look at the Vikings, so they're 5-5-1 against the spread this season. So they covered against the Packers, which is not pictured, and for that we thank you. But then the Vikings went on a 4-game against the spread losing streak against the Eagles, and then also, so the Vikings beat Detroit, they beat New Orleans, and they beat Chicago, but they did not cover the spread. And this was a nice little stretch where betting the money line, so just straight up betting a team to win or lose, to win because you're betting the money line, and then betting on the other team's spread. So you have a chance where if the Vikings win, but they don't cover the spread, I mean, say the Vikings were favored by 7 against Chicago, and then they failed to cover that. Why no? Was it 7.5 or 8.5? Might have been. And then you win both bets. It's a great emotional hedge because if the other team wins, they obviously cover because they got points. If the Vikings are favorites, so I will take that. It's good, man. So they won and covered against Miami. They won and covered against Arizona. They pushed the 3-point edge against Washington. Oh, I'm a dummy. It says right there it was 10. Ha! Nailed it. And then they were 6.5 point dogs at Buffalo. They covered by winning outright in overtime. They were 1.5 point dogs against the Cowboys. It wasn't enough. I mean, they could have been 36.5 point dogs, and they just lost. And then they're 2.5 point favorites against the Patriots and won by a touchdown. And I know that Todd's making a whole stink about point differential and whatnot, but looking at just straight up against the spread. So the Vikings, like we mentioned, are 5-5-1, 15th in the league. Look at Philly. So, teams like Philly, teams like San Francisco, teams like Miami, who the media make out as the bee's knees. I mean, a lot of people are really on the San Francisco Super Bowl train. We'll see. But, I mean, the Eagles, yes. I mean, the Eagles are significantly larger favorites in some of these matchups than the Vikings are. And, the fact that they're 6-5 is still slightly better than 5-5-1. It's only slightly. So say the Vikings going back, that game that they pushed against Washington, say the Vikings won by 4. So they would also be 6-5 against the spread against Philly. But no one's nitpicking Philly. No one's nitpicking San Francisco for winning ugly. No one's nitpicking Miami, but they just nitpick the Vikings. By the way, some of the best teams against the spread this year: Cincinnati, Tennessee Titans, the Giants, Dallas, etc. So I don't know. Like, maybe that's why the Vikings are only 3-point favorites against the Jets on Sunday at home. By the way, I mean, the Jets do have a good defense. Mike White looked really good, so maybe that plays into it, the public perception of, hey, the Jets are back. I don't know, but could this be a spot where most 9-2 teams, bringing in a team like the Jets, who are still in the playoff thick, have a winning record, etc., would have been 4.5, 5, maybe even 6, maybe even a touchdown favorite, but then the Vikings are just 3 points. It's possible because the line moves on where the money goes, and the general public just doesn't believe in the Vikings yet. But that's okay. It's okay. Whether it's the line, whether it's whatever, whether it's not getting as good of odds on the money line, actually getting better odds if you're betting the Vikings to win, I'm okay. As long as those numbers get put in the win column, I don't care if you win by a point. I don't care if you win by 10. I don't care if you win by 37 or 937. All right, a win is a win is a win. But your thoughts are thoughts. CBS Sports betting expert Todd Fuhrman hates the Vikings. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts and his thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol production value.